start the recording right here. So good afternoon, Pat. My name is Claudio. I'm calling you from DC, from the studios in Fairfax City. We're very humble and grateful that Pat Coil accepted our invitation to our show. Pat, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Pat, with everything that's going on, with the pandemic, you cannot tour, you need to stay at home. How is this the pandemic is affecting your family, first of all, your creativity and so forth. So feel free to
Right.
elaborate.
Well, uh, it's it's an interesting thing. You know, we all my touring got canceled, obviously,
Yep.
and um, I tour with Michael McDonald, and I also tour with Linda Carter. If you remember her, she was Wonder Woman.
Yep. Yep.
Anyway, she has a singing career, and I tour with her, and then I do the main part of my work here is studio work here in Nashville.
Yeah.
Um, the the silver lining for me is I've been able to do a lot of recording from home online. People will send me projects, and I'll add piano or synthesizer or strings or whatever they need, and that's that has picked up. I think more and more people are doing that. It's kind of one of the silver linings of this epidemic is the technology is getting better for that, and more people are going that way. So um, I would say at least half of my recording sessions right now are that way. As far as playing live, yeah, that's pretty much all gone. Even locally, I'm, I play a lot of styles. But one of my favorite is to play jazz, and there's a couple of clubs here in Nashville that are good for that, and I haven't been able to do that since last spring. There are recording sessions happening here. It's it's they started up like pretty soon. I mean, they started up like in the spring, not too long after they sort of have that period where things started opening up again, and then of course it got stricter. Uh, but they are doing it safely, which is nice. The studios all have mask requirements and the distancing requirements, and um, so most of those have been very. I haven't felt like I've been in any jeopardy at all, and a lot of times as a pianist, I'm in a booth or a room all by myself, so that's been fine. As far as my family, yeah, it's basically all my kids are grown, so it's me and my wife, and we stay in as much as possible and make the occasional trip to the grocery store just like everyone else does. And but it's been
Any,
yeah, it's been interesting.
any of your kids are musicians grown or got involved into?
Um, my I have a son who is actually a really good drummer, but he chose to go into acting, and he's living in Los Angeles where I used to live, and he was starting to make some headway. He was getting a bunch of national commercials and starting to audition for all these shows and stuff, and that sort of ground to a halt. The industry out there, anybody who's has anything to do with the arts, basically, it's all ground to a halt. Anything that has to do with being around people for what you do, and so he's out there waiting at just playing the waiting game too. But he's a good drummer. And then I have some daughters who have at different times have taken piano lessons, but they didn't stick with it.
I got you. I got you. As I mentioned before, I don't know how to read music. I never play any instrument at all. It so happened that I, have a good ear, and I like different kind of music. I have a lot of music here and
Yeah,
I mean, behind me, but 3 floors of, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of CDs and vinyl from
yeah,
all kind of stuff, from Pink Floyd, Depeche Mode, Peter Gabriel, Pat Benatar, Blondie, Coldplay, Michael McDonald, blah, 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 blah. So it depended on the day or depended on the week, and electronic music soundtracks. There's some stuff
hmm
that when I listen too much of Michael McDonald, kind of soft stuff, then or the Michael McDonald, the Doobie Brothers, I will say, no, I want to put some electronic music on, and
yeah,
then vice versa. Then I go to Latin music and I go around. So,
yeah. I play all kinds of music. I love all kinds of music, and
yeah.
the one of my early employers was a big band leader named Woody Herman, and he used to say, I think he was quoting Duke Ellington, that there's only two kinds of music. There's good music and there's bad music.
I completely agree.
And so I try to play the good stuff, and I enjoy every style I play. I think the key is to enjoy it, and other people will enjoy it if you're enjoying it. So,
Gotcha. Before this year, let's go back to 2020 or even 2019, before the virus. How many gigs were you doing, like a year or so on average?
oh,
With McDonald, you guys were touring
well,
a lot.
we toured a lot. I mean, I've been with Mike since I want to say 2002, and I mean, I took about a year off, and from his gig, and when my son was in high school, and I just wanted to be home for him. But then I ended up touring with Olivia Newton-John for about a year and a half during that time. But then I went back on Mike's band, and yeah, he likes to work. He stays busy, and, and especially after, he had this one record that came out, he did a few Motown records, covers, and that sort of put him back in the map, and all of a sudden we were working all the time, and I have to say it's been working for him is a pleasure. He's a good guy. He's very down to earth, very humble, and obviously, he's great. So I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot from him. Not only his singing, but his piano playing, which I like.
Yeah, Bernie had been with him a lot longer than you, right? Like,
yeah, I think he's been there almost 30 years.
My God, that's more than a marriage.
Yeah,
Some people.
Bernie's been there a long time. Bernie's great. The band right now is an excellent band. I really, really miss playing with these guys. They're good guys. They're all Nashville guys, and because Mike used to live here for a while.
That's right.
And, they're good guys. They're talented, fantastic musicians, and yeah, I miss that. I really do. It's there's not much about the road I miss other than playing and hanging out with the guys, because it could be very grueling, and it's not this glamorous life people might.
Sure. Is it difficult life when you do whatever with Michael or Olivia John or whatever, you're on tour for, I don't know, 40 shows, and you need to leave the house, and it's, stay in a hotel, and then waking up in the morning and go to bed the night before at 2 o'clock in the morning. You couldn't fall asleep because you were hyper from the gig and so on and so forth. It's tough, I suppose, right?
It was easy. It was easier when I was younger, that's for sure. We have pretty nice buses, and you can sleep on them, sort of. I mean, I don't sleep when the bus is moving all that well, but and they do a lot of night rides where we'll finish a gig, and the bus will leave after the gig and go to the next city. So you kind of when you have the days off is kind of when you catch up on your rest. Other than that, it's a little bit grueling, but it's fun.
Yeah, you get paid. Well, you like the music. People would think that you get paid to play music, but in reality, like Bernie will say, you get paid for sleeping in a hotel, waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning sometime, catching a flight somewhere else, and the buses, and
that's
the music. You do it because you like it, right? So
the music is the easy part. Yeah,
it's the easy part.
That's the easy part. That's the fun part, and hanging out with the guys. The rest of it's can be. I mean, you end up sometimes staying in a hotel like way out in the middle of nowhere, and you have a day off and there's nothing to do. So there's that too. But then on the other side of the coin, sometimes you get a night off and you're staying in New York City. So there's lots to do. So it's kind of the whole spectrum. It's everything.
I got you. I was looking at your partial recording crate, and you have played with Natalie Cole, Peter Cetera, Michael McDonald, Barry Manilow.
Mm-hmm.
My God, man, you have it seems to me that you have a good, insatiable appetite for good music, man.
Well, I've been fortunate. And one of the most fortunate things is most of the people I've had the opportunity to work for, especially on an ongoing basis. They've all been very nice people. That's not always the case. And like Michael's a great guy, and Vince Gill is a great guy, and Linda Carter is a wonderful lady, and Olivia Newton-John couldn't have been nicer. So I mean, all these people that I've had the opportunity. I mean, a lot of the list you see are like recordings I've done. You know,
Yeah.
so I wasn't actually spending a whole lot of time with the artist, but yeah, I've been very fortunate, and still going. You know, I want to keep doing it. So
Well, absolutely.
hopefully this all be in the past, in the rearview mirror, and we'll get back to it.
Yeah. Well, but at least you're doing stuff at home, right? So you're not idle. You know, you
No,
have your studio at home. You're helping other people. You're earning some money, working new stuff. So which is good. You know.
yeah, and I do my own songs too. I do my own stuff, so that keeps me going as well.
That's beautiful. All right, man. So let's go back to the beginning. Were you born like a sort of musical family? And how old were you when you began playing? I don't know, no keyboard, but
Uh, my,
piano.
my mother made me take piano lessons when I was about 8 years old, and I hated it at first, and then after about a year, I started taking to it and started enjoying it, and she didn't have to make me practice anymore. Nobody in my family was very musical, and nobody can figure out what happened with me as far as, you know, I think what happened is I heard someone, you know, I was doing my lessons, but then I went and heard a rock band somewhere as a kid, probably out in a park somewhere, and I heard this keyboard player playing, and he was playing. I don't know if you can hear this. Can you hear?
No, but a little bit louder if you will.
Let me see if I can.
You can move the mic closer if you will.
No, it's
Right. Yeah, beautiful. Yeah.
I was hearing a keyboard player do. And that's Louie, right?
Yeah, of course.
And I said I have to learn how to do that. You know, so I was so I went up and bugged this guy until he showed it to me. And then I was fortunate enough to have a band director in high school. So I wanted to be in the jazz band, so I would go to the band room every day after school, and I'd start playing, just jamming at the piano, thinking that this guy's going to ask me to be in the jazz band. Of course, he never did. So I finally went up to him in his office, and I said, Mr. Hoover, I'd love to be in the jazz band. And I think that's possible. And he says, well, sure. Come and meet me Monday morning at 7 a.m. And I'm going, okay. So I show up, and he has a tuba and a music stand with music on it. And I said, what's this? And he goes, well, you know, in order to be in the jazz band, you have to be in the marching band, and we need tuba players. So and then I ended up getting a scholarship to North Texas State University, which is a big music school, where I ended up being a professor for a while, actually. And he made a tape and got me a scholarship on tuba. So that was all a good thing.
Yeah, wow, that's beautiful. No piano, just tuba. Wow.
Yeah, well, I was doing both, but you know, and I eventually chose piano. It seemed to have more of a future.
Were you a good student in high school? Do you kind of have any pressure, family pressure to pick an engineer and pick a medical, career instead of music, or it was up to you?
Well, no direct pressure, but my dad was a judge, and and I think he was really foreseeing me going to law school and becoming a lawyer. I would have made a terrible lawyer, but he was always supportive, and he eventually, you know, when it became clear that this is what I wanted to do, and I was, you know, pretty good at it, then I think he was okay with it. He came around. So.
You remember back, if you look back in your life, what the first kind of band that you guys put together was in high school or was more in college?
Oh, in high school. Yeah.
You know, kids from the neighborhood got together. Hey, we need a bass player. Who can do, who can play piano?
Yeah, the first band I was in, outside of the high school band was a group of us put together a band that was a Tijuana brass copy band. You remember the Tijuana Brass, Herb Alpert and the Tijuana Brass?
Yeah.
So we got some music with those songs in it, and we started imitating that music, and we actually entered a talent show once and played and came in second to a baton twirler. So it was a humbling experience, but it was fun. And then I eventually played in some through the band director again. He would hire me to play weddings, dances, country clubs. I think we played a prison once and some hospitals, and that's kind of where I learned, that's where I learned how to play. That's where I learned how to play a gig, and then the light bulb went off, and it was like, oh, I can get paid for this and do what I want, and do
Why not, right?
So that kind of was there was no turning back from that point. Yeah.
Gotcha. You remember the first vinyl back in the day that you bought together, or
Yeah.
with your own
Record? I had an eclectic collection even as a kid. I had Ramsey Lewis, who I think was the first jazz I ever heard, and then of course I had a Cream record with Eric Clapton, those guys. I had a few Beatles records. I had a couple of big band records, Woody Herman and who I ended up working for, Stan Kenton, and I'm trying to remember what other records I had. My parents didn't have much of a record collection. Oh, Crosby, Stills and Nash, and then gosh, what else? I think I had a Rolling Stones. Just the usual stuff that a kid that age would have. Except
so you went to college, and then you continue playing. So the scholarship was to kind of go into a music program where you could play any instrument, or you were forced to, well, you're in the tuba path or the piano path, or it was up to you to pick up.
I went to, like I said, I went to North Texas State, which is known as University of North Texas now. It had really still has an incredible jazz program. So I went there because I was into jazz. That's what I wanted to play, and I ended up doing really well there. I had some of my friends and peers that I went to school with ended up being really famous and doing a lot of things in the jazz world. One of which was Lyle Mays. He was my roommate. Lyle was.
My God, of course I know him. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he was with the Matheny band, of course, but we've been friends, up until he passed away recently, and he produced one of my records, as a matter of fact. I did a few records for Sheffield Lab out in L.A. when I lived there, and I talked them into having Lyle produce one of the records, and it was one of the best experiences of my life, actually.
And you were roommates at the school?
Yeah,
My God, man.
Yeah, we shared a duplex off campus, and I remember there was a grand piano in the living room. There was we each had Fender Rhodeses in our bedroom, and I think we even had a clavinet in the kitchen, and so there was keyboards all over the place, and when Lyle came to school, I mean, he was pretty much a prodigy, and I had the choice of either trying to compete with him or learning from him, because he was so far ahead of the rest of us. He was so far ahead of the rest of us.
Really? He was that good? Yeah.
Oh yeah, he came to school playing like Oscar Peterson. I mean, he was incredible. And then so I just absorbed what I could from him, and he was a nice enough guy that he made me feel like I had some worthwhile talent. So he encouraged me, and then he left school and went on the road with Woody Herman. When he left the band, he recommended me, and that's how I went on the road with Woody Herman. So I did that. I did that band in my early 20s for, two different times. It was a period, a total of about 3 years, I guess. But it was a great way to see the country. It let me kind of figure out maybe where I wanted to go settle and what I wanted to do.
You know, one of my heroes is Pat Metheny and Pat Metheny Group. So I'm very good friend with Paul Vertigo, the drummer, and
Oh yeah, yeah. Well,
uh,
Steve Rodby helped Lyle produce
Steve
that,
Bradley too. Yeah.
and Pat. I actually knew Pat. I grew up in Missouri, so
Oh wow.
I knew Pat in high school. We never got to play together in high school, but we went to a couple of the same music camps together. And he was another one where he was so far ahead of everyone else, you know.
Were you in the same high school? Okay.
No. He lived in Kansas City, and I lived in a small town, a capital city called Jefferson City.
I got you. Right.
And but I would drive to Kansas City, and I took from the same teacher that he took from, and so we've known about each other for years. We've just never really hooked up to play. I mean, actually, I went and rehearsed with them when Lyle was in the band. They were toying with the idea of adding a keyboard player, so I went up to rehearse with him for a couple of weeks at one point. And the drummer in that band, Danny Gottlieb,
Yep.
lives here in Nashville, and we're very good friends, and we play together all the time. And matter of fact, I've been recording for this label called Burton Avenue Music, and Danny's part of the trio that I'm recording with.
Man, my God, how in the world you didn't end up playing with Pat Metheny Group? If you know everybody. Well, because Lyle was there.
Yeah, well, yeah, that would mean Lyle was pretty much the standard, you know.
So Lyle's and Pat Metheny were way ahead of the time at at their ages when they were 15 or something.
Yeah, they were, you know, Lyle was at least half of that group's sound, you know, his writing and his playing and the sounds that he created on synthesizers.
Yeah.
Very,
Wow, man, small world, man.
Yeah.
Small world, man. You remember the first concert tour that you did with who would have been the group or the group? Woody would have been.
My first touring experience was with Woody Herman.
Yeah, I got you.
And then I ended up getting off the road, moving to New York briefly for a few months, and then went back on the road with Woody for another year, and then ended up moving to Dallas because I had some friends that were living there doing jingle work, commercial work, and it was a big Dallas at the time was a big jingle town, and you could actually, I mean, we worked every day actually, and we'd play at night, and I had a band there. And from there, I ended up moving to Los Angeles, and I played in the TV film industry for at least about 12 years, I guess. Played on all the Star Trek stuff, and I'll just show lots of movies and lots of TV shows, that was a great training ground as well, because I also write scores and I write for different companies, different music library companies, and it was sort of helped me. It was sort of my time in Dallas was sort of my training ground for how to be a studio musician, and then I went to LA and did all of that work, and now I'm in Nashville, and I'm still doing it.
So from LA to Texas, why you end up in Los Angeles to begin with? I mean, after playing with a couple group, with a couple band, you kind of the TV stuff, doing film score, kind of was your calling, or by accident you put something together and then something call you back, somebody call you back, and
I was actually pretty happy in Dallas.
Yeah,
I was working a lot, and then I met my future wife, and she's a singer. We're still married.
That's
and
good.
she had some people that were interested in her, and so she moved to Los Angeles to pursue that.
Oh, I see.
So I said, okay, well, I'm coming too, So, and it was actually a good time to move because the work, the jingle scene in Dallas started ebbing a little bit, and Los Angeles was just the obvious next step as far as trying to improve myself and get better and play with some great musicians. Not that I wasn't in Dallas; they were all fantastic there too. But there was was a certain level in Los Angeles, that was just a little bit higher as far as like what they expected from
I got you. I have heard that the film score business is very, very competitive, very difficult to get into, right? I mean,
you.
a lot of many guys that I don't know, with a good name, Michael Honing, right? That a lot of electronic music guys or girls, they end up doing a score for I don't know horror movies, or terror movies, suspense movie. But I have heard that it's a very, very competitive business. It's very difficult to get into.
Well, to be a excuse me,
You get it?
to be a writer and composer in the business, yeah, that's pretty competitive. When I was there, I was a player. I was just like being hired. Someone recommended me to a contractor, and they took a chance on me, and then it just went from there. So it was, yeah, to be a writer and to be a composer, I would say that's a very competitive business. I never really tried to break in there as a composer or a writer. I always worked for the composers and the writers.
Yeah.
But I now I do some, I do write, and I do some scoring for, there's a couple of outfits I work for that place music in TV shows. So I do that kind of work as well.
Do you have like a library staff, and then you license, or
Yeah.
they can use it whatever you.
Yeah, different companies will hire you to write. Might want a disc, of I don't know, of all drama cues or all comedy cues or all solo piano or country or all these different styles of music that they need that they sell to TV stations and radio stations or try to get placed on on reality shows. A lot of what I write gets put into reality shows.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, and I write a lot of that stuff like Entertainment Tonight, Dr. Phil,
Gotcha. Yeah.
Rachel Ray, all those kinds of shows. A lot of my stuff ends up in those, and every company has a different deal as far as sharing and publishing and writers royalties and all that stuff. Sometimes some of them just pay you some money, and it's kind of just a buyout situation. So you do what you can.
That's right. That's right, man. Feel free to elaborate on your participation with Olivia Newton-John. How was it like to play with her or be in her band? And
oh well, she's just a wonderful lady. She couldn't have been nicer. The band, when I joined the band, I think I was recommended by her music director at the time.
Yeah.
A guy named Andy Timmons, who's a fantastic guitarist. And I ended up touring with her for about a year, and it was fantastic. I mean, those the music she does and the songs she does are very well crafted pop tunes, and lots of great chord changes, and so it's very interesting music, and especially for a keyboard player and a pianist, it was really fun to do, and it was great. We toured all over the country, and then we toured Australia, we toured England, and people loved her. Still do. People still love her. And of course, we did all the Grease tunes from that show as well, which was kind of fun.
gotcha. Which year was that? How long ago was that?
Well, gosh.
Remember? If you don't, it's okay.
Yeah, I would say it was about 6 years ago. Yeah.
Well, the same question with playing with Barry Manilow.
Oh, Barry, I ended up playing on 2 of his records when I lived in Los Angeles. One was a Broadway record, and I can't remember the other one's called. But then he came through Nashville, and he did a TV special here. And so I'm not sure if he heard about me or somebody else recommended me, but since I had lived in Los Angeles and then I lived in Nashville, he thought they thought I would be a good music director for that project. And it was called Manilow Country. And it was a TV special of him singing his songs with different country stars, you know, like Trisha Yearwood, and all these different people, Lori Morgan, um, and you know, and a lot of his songs lend themselves pretty well to the, you know, to a country style, and so it was a really fun show to do, and he ended up really loving it, um, and you know, I remember I went out to Los Angeles to rehearse with him, and what they have in Nashville, they have a system that they call number charts. Um, so instead of writing out the notes and the chord changes, everything is in numbers. So like it's hard to explain. Uh, but it's an entirely different system, and the beauty of the system is that you can, with the numbers, you're always in the key of one rather than the key of C or the key of E flat or the key of F. You're always in the key of one, and so you just transpose in your head and use the numbers to replace the chords. And he had these, you know, I don't know, these charts that were 10, 11 pages long, all these written out things, and he was asking me, so well, how are you gonna, you know, write these tunes out for the Nashville guys? And I says, well, you know, everything you see here is going to fit on one page, you know, because of the, you know, I say when there's a key change, I just say up one step or up a half step, or, and he was pretty impressed with that. And I think he really enjoyed, you know, he really enjoyed the experience of playing with some of the Nashville guys, because I hired a really good band for him.
Gotcha. Wow, that's beautiful. What about same question for Michael McDonald? But how do you need to audition? How was the process of, you know, joining Michael McDonald? Because I'm quite sure that playing with Michael, he's very famous, so I'm quite sure that the selection process was very, very competitive, I suppose, right?
Well, you know, I think most, you know, most bands and most artists, you know, they go on recommendations.
Oh, I see.
You get recommended, you go play. Maybe it's a rehearsal you play. Maybe it's like one gig, and that becomes your audition, basically. And with Michael, I remember I was at my son's soccer game, and my phone rang, and I answered it, and it was his assistant saying, "Hey, can you play with Michael McDonald tomorrow night for a benefit here in town?" And I said, "Oh, of course, yes," you know. And I was on a list that had been recommended to her or him, and I just happened to answer the phone at the right time. And then I went and played the gig. The keyboard player he had ended up leaving soon after that, and so they called me back and asked me if I wanted to do it. And that's how it started.
Wow. And how? But you knew it was easy for you to read music you never seen before, or pretty much you.
Well, you know, nobody, I mean, Michael doesn't read music, and nobody in the band really, everybody, well, I'll take that back. Several of the guys in the band are great readers. Some of the guys are not read music. You know, Nashville is full of some of the best musicians who don't read music.
Gotcha.
You know, it's not to take anything away from them. It's just a skill. You know, if you want to learn how to do it, it helps you as far as getting other kinds of work, you know. But a lot of guys in Nashville are just play by ear. And so basically with Mike, you know, I would just have the recordings of the songs, and I would learn them from the recordings. And
But the first night, the kind of that particular event, you do the song before, or kind of you
I didn't have any time to really get ready. It's like I had heard some of his songs, you know, obviously
yeah,
on the radio, and of course I was playing B3. I was playing organ,
yeah,
and so he's doing the main keyboard part, and I'm just adding colors and adding stuff.
yeah,
So that's a little easier than being the main keyboard. You
yeah.
know? So I was able to just use my ear and fit in where I felt I could. And then, you know, of course, as time went on, I learned the songs really well, and then ended up playing, you know, some synth keyboards and adding all kinds of different sounds to the gig. And you know, it's been very enjoyable.
And then, you know, you did well that night. I suppose he maybe call other people, you know, from different night, and then you end up being the person for the you got the job, right? So
Yeah, I just went and did that one gig, and then ended up getting the job. Getting called. And I suppose if he didn't think I did a good job, I wouldn't have gotten called back. That's just
okay.
the way it works.
At the time, yeah, he was living in. He doesn't live in Nashville anymore, right, Michael? No, he's in California.
No, he's yeah, he lives in Santa Barbara.
Yeah.
And he used to live there, and then he moved to Nashville. But he was in Nashville for quite a while. I don't know, at least 10 years. And he was writing songs with people, and he had a recording studio here, and we all hated to see him go, but I understood. They wanted to live back in California.
Yeah. Yeah, I never been myself in Nashville, but it's like I don't know, atmospheres of a lot of writers, musicians, and it's a place to be, I suppose, right? If you
Nashville's
yeah.
it is unique. Having lived in New York and Los Angeles
Yeah.
and seen and Dallas and seeing the music scenes in different places, Nashville is unique in that obviously it's known for country music, but there's so much more here, and because it's a music center, it attracts talent. There's a couple of different really good music schools in the area so people end up settling here. Same with North Texas. People from North Texas, they'd settle in Dallas, Fort Worth area. So the quality, the talent pool here is very deep and very good. So there's a great symphony orchestra here. There's a whole separate recording orchestra that works here. And then there's horn sections, the guys, there's the touring guys, the guys here that go out with all the different country acts, and then of course there's pop acts, and this is a gospel music center. A lot of CCM, they call it contemporary Christian music, is done here. A ton of black gospel music is done here, and it's just it's like the palette of different kinds of styles that you can play and do here. It just runs the gamut of everything. There's great jazz players here too.
Yeah.
So and alternative bands, rock bands. It's just always been very good.
So if you want to be a musician, you got to move there. I suppose for the young people.
It's one place to move. Yeah.
One place to. Yeah.
To me, one of the main reasons for living here is I wanted a place where I could work, but still feel like it was a good place to have a family.
Yeah.
And Nashville immediately. I grew up in the Midwest in Missouri, as I said. So Nashville is very similar. I mean, it has hills and trees and lakes and seasons.
Good.
It felt very comfortable, and it felt like it was the kind of place where my kids could just go ride their bikes down the street and that sort of thing. Los Angeles was not quite that way.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, I ended up living kind of outside of Los Angeles at the end. My last few years there, kind of out. I had I had a few acres and horses and all that stuff, which was fun. But I lived in my car. It was just to get somewhere. You had to get to a session. You had to at least plan on 2 hours of driving sometimes. And here, basically in 20 minutes I can be anywhere.
Gotcha. Yep. I forgot the name. There is one Pandefini that there's another guy who he did a record and took for a while as a duo. He really liked that guy. I forgot the name. You may know. He's a bass player.
Oh, with Pat?
Yeah.
Charlie Hayden?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know him or?
Well, I've met him. Yeah, I actually got to play with him once. Yeah. He's another Missouri guy.
That's the reason that I was.
Yeah. I was playing this was years ago. I was playing a gig at a jazz club, and he was there with a mutual friend. Actually, another bass player friend of mine had brought him in to actually have dinner and to hear my group, my trio, and you know, I asked him if he wanted to sit in, and he said yes. So I got to play a song with him, which was fun. You know, he was a fantastic, you know, one of a kind musician himself.
Yeah, that's beautiful, man. Uh, I was looking as was when I was preparing for the interview. I went to Spotify last night, and there are four songs that have been here over 1 million times or so.
Oh
They're,
wow.
yeah, most of them come from the record Java Jazz,
Oh yeah. Okay. Those are
Spotify. Yeah,
yeah. Those records are what mm, I work for a couple of different labels that do what they call gift shop records,
yeah,
uh,
gotcha.
and sort of so you're kind of playing, you know, like very traditional, safe sort of jazz,
Yeah.
and so yeah, that gets a lot of airplay on Spotify. Those kind of things.
I heard that Spotify doesn't pay them much, right? I mean, even 1 million,
And
maybe it's $20 or something. You get paid
no,
like a
it's
zero point zero 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 0.0006 or
not.
something.
It's not good for that at all. No,
Yeah,
it's ever since you know the record companies didn't see it coming. They didn't see any of this coming. You know,
yeah,
the Napster thing. You know, I mean, basically everybody's kind of thinks music should be free. You know, and now that you know for less than a cup of coffee you can just get it. You know, all the music you want. It seems like it's kind of a drag. I remember on one of my records that I did, um, one of my own records I did this label out in L.A. named Sheffield Lab. Um, one of my nieces came up to me and says, "Uncle Pat, I just downloaded your record. I love it, you know." And I was saying, "Well, did you pay for it?" She goes, "No, it's right there. I can just get it, you know." And I was trying to explain to her, you know, that I mean, you know, she was my niece, so I wasn't too hard on her. But I said, you know, it's kind of like stealing. You know,
sure.
it's a product I made that you know people need to buy. And she did. They don't understand. It went right over her head. She didn't understand why or how the whole concept, you know. And so that's a shame. That's one of the worst things that ever happened to our business. And now it's happening to movies too. So
We how you prevent that with all the technology nowadays?
um,
It's
you know,
hard, right? I mean,
things just change. You know, I mean, you do the best you can. You know, that's why more bands are touring all the
you
time.
know,
You know, it's
yeah,
like
you make the money in touring, right? You don't get well, but the other sides, let's say, Bandcamp, right? You upload a CD, you lay a CD, and I think they take 10% and you get the other. So
yeah,
this is very fair. This is
yeah.
very
I mean, it's like any technology. It's good and bad. You know, there's bad points and there's good points. And on one hand, it makes it more available, more visible for artists that would never ever get a record deal. You know, and so people can, you know, if they get enough people behind them, so that they can actually sell music and they can tour on it. And so it's all good. You know, it's just things are always going to change. It's you know nothing will ever stay the same. So
for me, right, as a consumer of music. Well, I buy a lot. Obviously, it's true that I buy a lot, but for Spotify, right, I pay whatever $10 a month,
right,
and I have access to trillions of songs, right? So I'm always looking for new music, new artists, and new things. For the soft rock radio, I buy very different music. For the jazz, buy different music. So
right,
it's a very good library to listen to thousands of musicians I never even heard before,
sure.
and it's beautiful, right? So
Yeah, that's the good part. Yeah, definitely the good part. You know,
you can get, for people who never hear your stuff, and they know you only for Michael McDonald, right? They go, well, I have done my own with my trio.
right,
Well,
right.
so you get some exposure.
You do,
You know,
you
you
do,
know,
and then of course you can try to sell your own stuff through a website or through CD Baby, and
Yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So
Feel free to elaborate in a couple. I think I have 3 or 4 here. Uh, that probably the first by the name. They're gonna be the first one. Yeah, you are the cream in my coffee, and
oh yeah,
here
well,
is that rainy day.
yeah. That's that's a kind of listenable jazz. Uh,
Yeah.
that's called making a living. I have records out of my own. My my newest one is called Music for Humans and Other Species. You can
Yeah.
get it on my website. You can also get it at CD Baby. And then I have several records I've done over the years under my own name that you can get there. Um, the Sheffield Lab records are not available anymore. I would love it if they could be, because I know a lot of
Why?
people.
Why's that? Why?
Well, they went out of business. So they went out of business, and legally I don't own the recordings, so it's hard to. I'm not even sure who I'd get in touch with now to see if I could get the masters back and re-release them. But I'm going to try, because I know a lot of people that at one point I was considering a solo artist career, and I had a pretty good manager agent type guy interested in putting me out there. But he said to me, he says, well, if you do this, this is your job. This is the only thing you're going to do. You can't, as far as doing studio work and all that stuff, you're going to be on the road. I had a family at the time and decided that, that I wouldn't go that route. But I still want to play music, and I still want to write music. I write all the time. And so this is an outlet, just putting out CDs, even if I don't make any money on them, is an outlet for me. And, I have enough people that enjoy them that it feels worthwhile to do.
I got you. There's another album that I listened to. Then again, I don't own the album, but it was Spotify. The Schemes and Dreams,
Yeah, that's the
and that's you can hear Lyle Mays right there. Even if of
yeah.
course, I didn't know that Lyle, but I say, so I put my headphone and man, that reminds me of something.
Well,
So then I look, of course, Lyle Mays.
he he produced it. He produced that record.
That's a beautiful record,
And
man.
we co-wrote pretty much all the music on it. So
Yeah.
well, thank you. Yeah, that's one of the records I wish I had the rights to, that I could just re-release. And
There gotta be a way to give them. Somebody must have the master. I don't know. Easy for me to say. I don't know how that works, but
yeah. Well, the guy who started the label has passed on. Doug Sachs. He was an incredible engineer who invented the mastering business. Mastering is like the end stage of a record, where you
yeah,
put the EQ on it and all this stuff. He pretty much invented that business. And his label was an audiophile label. And in other words, it was like audiophile purists who had incredible stereo systems. Sheffield Lab
yeah,
was one of the products that they would buy to get the real sound. He would hire the best engineers and the best studios, and they made their own microphones and their own preamplifiers and all this stuff. And Doug, passed away, and then his partner, Lincoln Mayorga, incredible pianist. He was a classical and studio pianist in Los Angeles for a long time. He would, I would probably have to get in touch with him and see what the deal is. I've thought about it. Definitely thought about it. And
well, I hope it works out, man.
well, thank you.
That's a beautiful album, man. Yeah,
Well, I enjoyed doing it. I was just sorry we couldn't do more. It
yeah.
would have been nice to do some more.
When Lyle passed away like 3 or 4 years ago, right? That correct? Or 2 years ago?
Just last year.
Oh, last year. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
He was a very good guy, man. I never met the guy, but
Yeah.
a very decent person, I suppose.
He was a humble, sweet guy, really nice guy. Yeah, I can't say enough good things. I mean, he was the only genius I've ever actually really known.
Really?
He was truly a genius. I mean, he ended up just quitting the music business. He would say, there's actually a really good website about that someone put together for him. I ended up contributing to it.
Yeah.
I think it's called LyleMays.com. Um, but he in an interview he said, somebody asked him, well, how come you haven't been playing or putting out any music? And he just said, well, I've kind of done that, and I feel like the music business kind of left me, where what I do wasn't getting attention and airplay, and I mean, he was a serious artist. He wasn't doing it. He wasn't doing it for the money, and um, but he ended up being a software. Like he started writing software and hanging out with people at Caltech, and and that kind of fit his genius IQ, to a T. He was a great pool player.
Really?
He would enter tournaments, yeah, as a pool player. Whatever he did, I mean, you would never want to play chess with him. Whatever he did, he excelled at. He was just one of those kind of guys.
He was like a raw, high-level intellectual capacity, whether it was music or pool or whatever,
Yeah, but he also had a great spiritual, emotional side in his music. It wasn't all just intellectual. He tapped into some passion, with his music, and that's what people respond to.
Yeah, the earliest records with Pat Metheny, before they became, the band was called Pat Metheny Group. He contributed to so many, music composition. There is half, I don't know, his or a third or whatever.
Oh yeah,
That's his stuff,
they pretty much shared all the writing, and
Mm.
he was a major part of that band sound.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Unbelievable. I didn't know that he was that gifted. Looking back at your life now, it is anybody in the business that you wish you have the opportunity to play with, whether you have played with them, playing again, or people that you, for any reason, you never played and you wish that you have had the opportunity to play with?
Well, sure. I mean, there's just so many people that I've listened to over the years and admired. I mean, as far as on the pop side or rock side,
Both can be, yeah.
Yeah, I wish I could have worked with Joe Cocker. I really liked. Yeah, I like Joe. I know some guys who were on that gig. I think I would have really enjoyed that. Gosh, who else? I mean, there's a lot of jazz guys. I mean, obviously, you just name any great jazz guy, and I'd love to play with them. But I don't know. I've never, things. I always go with the flow. Things kind of fall your way. Doors open. You have opportunities. You go for it. And I've been lucky so far. It's all been enjoyable.
Yeah. Are you a type of person that you look back in your life and say, man, I wish, my kid did different things, or end up playing a different band instead of Michael McDonald, or you're grateful for what you have and the opportunity, which has been unbelievable. I mean, you have, played with famous people, and you've been in hundreds of thousands of recording with the top musicians in the world. So
I am very grateful, and I'm, anytime I come, I know that anytime I've ever come home and complained about anything as far as music goes, like the road, or maybe I've played a recording session that it didn't quite like the music or didn't like the producer or whatever, and I'll come home and complain to my wife, and she'll go, "Do you know how many people wish they could do what you're doing?" And I go, "Yeah, you're right. I shouldn't complain." So I try not to. No, I've been very lucky. Been very fortunate, and I know that there's so many people out there that can do what I do, and I know getting older that you feel that pressure of the younger guys coming up, and like doing taking some of the work you used to do. That's just the way of the world. It's going to happen. But so far, I've been able to. New doors keep opening up for me as far as like different things I can do. So I have no regrets.
that's great. And you have played pretty much all all over the world, right? In Japan, Europe. You've been in Latin and South America as well. Is that correct?
South America, Japan, yeah. Never been to
Have you
Russia.
ever played in Chile?
No, never played. The only South
That's
America we played in. I was with a jazz singer named Carmen McRae for a couple
yeah.
of years. Fantastic. That's a whole other story. She's like probably one of the best singers I've ever worked with in my life, and so she was. I learned so much from her, just on how to play behind a singer. And we played in Sao Paulo,
Brazil.
Brazil, and that's the only South American. Well, no, I went there with Ernie Watts, sax player. I used to work with his band too, and we went to Rio for a festival. But yeah, that's the only time I've been in South America.
Yeah.
And then Japan.
How it's like to play in Japan? It's the Asian crowd. It's different, special.
Yeah. Well, the only time I've been in Japan was with Carmen, and they loved her. I think it seems like everywhere except America, jazz is like really popular, and people like to go hear jazz artists. So Japan was like that. There was like so many clubs to play in, so many concert halls to play over there, and they were always packed, and the people were always really appreciative. And I love the Japanese culture. I love, it's so different, and it's just the food alone,
Amen. I completely agree with you. I buy a lot of music from Japan, vinyl.
Oh dear, yeah.
Oh yeah, I have a big, last week I received an order of 250 vinyl, and then I want a couple of weeks. I want to place another order. Yeah, for me it's important to listen to stuff. So I buy a lot of music.
Yeah.
And I never been for one reason or another. I was planning on going last year, but with the COVID, it didn't work out. But I really want to go, man. And my son liked that kind of food, so we'll definitely go, man.
Maybe by this time next year you'll be able to get back over there. Hopefully.
Oh, that's the plan. Yeah, and just you're right. Now that I think about it, Van Metheny, for example, with his trio, quartet, or yeah, with the trio, they do those jazz guys somehow in Japan. They're so popular that you do 4 nights and you end up doing 2 gigs a day because you do the morning stuff and the afternoon because the producer, the promoter say, hey, we can make good money here. Man. Can we do 2 shows a day? And the guy say, yeah, no problem. But you gotta pay me twice. But yeah.
Well, I mean, jazz is popular everywhere, but also we've been trying to talk Mike into into Japan again. We've never been there with Mike. I think they'd love him there. I know he's popular, so kind of a one of a kind. I mean, we did do Australia once with Mike, and he hadn't played there since the Doobie Brothers, but that was a great experience too.
How can we convince Michael McDonald to go there to Japan? I would love to go.
I don't know.
Hopefully, I will have the opportunity to interview Michael McDonald and the Doobie Brothers. I like that music too.
Well, their tour got canceled this summer, and I think they're going to do it next summer. And we'll see what happens. Maybe it'll be the summer after that. So all kind of up in the air right now.
Yeah. What kind of music do you listen now at home when you're not working with other musicians or every night you go to YouTube or you pull the CDs or vinyl, whatever you listen to stuff? Or?
Well, I spend enough time playing and writing and producing music that sometimes it's just good to get away from music. But as far as what I listen to for enjoyment, I mean, I think one of my favorite groups is the Yellow Jackets. I don't know if you know them.
Yeah, of course I do.
Yeah.
Never seen them, but I know who they are.
Yeah, and then there's a whole variety of things I love to listen to. I mean, I'll go back and listen to Bill Evans and Oscar Peterson and I mean all the jazz. I mean, I used to teach jazz at the I used to be a professor at college, a jazz studies professor. so I used to teach all of that, and I that was, when I'm teaching improvisation, like listening to the jazz masters is a big thing, important thing. So for enjoyment, I'll listen to all kinds of stuff. I can't think of anything like I mentioned the Yellow Jackets. I think I like them because they have a combination of styles and the writing and composition that I really enjoy. Is kind of, I kind of gravitate towards, because I grew up with a lot of the same influences when I was playing. Not only did I play jazz and listen to jazz, but I was also listening to the Beatles and all these different influences, and listening to some gospel music, and so all that gets in there. And Russell actually played on a couple of my records as an extra keyboardist. Yeah, and he's just sort of got that combination of things that I like. He's a great jazz player, but he's also got a blues thing and sort of a black gospel sort of way of playing piano. And his compositions are fantastic. So I think, I gravitate towards him a lot, Bobby McFerrin and that kind of thing.
What about early stuff in jazz, like, I don't know, Louis Armstrong, Carol Morton, for sure.
Love the New Orleans stuff. I love Dixieland. I love all the old New Orleans stuff. I love Louis Armstrong.
That's the stuff that my dad liked. So I began listening to the stuff without knowing what it was, of course. Right?
Yeah. I mean, jazz, like all styles, has a rich history, and to become a good, well-rounded musician, you need to know the history, and you need to know about all these different players who came before, and as a teacher, I try to get students to listen to things and imitate, try to play what they hear from the records. And then, I used to work for this, I used to do jazz camps. I was on the faculty for a guy great trumpet player named Clark Terry, who was a famous jazz trumpeter. He used to say that there's the 3 I's of learning how to play. And one was to imitate, and the other was to, was it 3 I's? Imitate.
Innovate, maybe.
Well, the last one's innovate. The second one was, now I'm on the spot, was I can't remember what it is.
Improvise. I don't know.
That was one. It wasn't it. I'll think of it as soon as we finish this interview.
You will remember.
Anyway, it was like absorbing something, that the word that means absorbing and taking it in. But as a teacher, you do need to know about all the people that came before you, and all the, and that's not just jazz. I mean, that's like any style of music. So
when I used to live in Boston, and then there is a very famous school, the Berklee School of Music.
Sure. Yeah. I've played.
It's for the young kids. I think it's very, very hard to get in, and it's very competitive. Very, few people will make it. It's very, I suppose in some profession, even if you're an average, you make a good living. If you're an average doctor or an average engineer, you get paid well. And so, but to be an average musician you're not going to make a living. It's hard. I mean, it's a field that you need to be kind of above average, right?
Yeah, Berklee was one of the first and most famous jazz schools, and they've sort of branched out now, and they teach all different styles now. Jazz is just one of them, and we played there. I remember we played there with Woody Herman. We did a whole record where it was a direct-to-disc record, and one side was this is with Woody Herman, and one side was a piece that the pianist Chick Corea had written, which is called Suite for a Hot Band, and then the other side was all Steely Dan tunes. And for the Chick Corea part, we went to Berklee and we stayed there and rehearsed for a week with Chick Corea, which was fantastic.
Really?
Yeah, which is fantastic. I mean, it was like, you're a piano player and I'm having Chick Corea rehearse me. Um, I mean, he was so good, you know. He would show the drummer how to play a certain thing, and he'd sit down at the drums because he could play great drums. And we ended up going to dinner with him and asking him, you know, all kinds of questions. And what was it like to play with Miles Davis, et cetera, et cetera. And he ended up recommending the bass player, Mark Johnson, who was on the band at the time, to Bill Evans, because Bill Evans was looking for a bass player, and Mark ended up doing the Bill Evans gig for a long, long time. But yeah, Berkeley is great. You know, I had a choice. I was either going to go there or North Texas. I ended up going to North Texas because I got a scholarship.
Was Mal Davis was another. I don't know if you met him, but it was him like another genius type, like I don't know, Jimi Hendrix or that kind of those people that
Yeah,
appear every 10 years or something like that.
yeah. Miles was probably one of the biggest influences on jazz.
Yeah.
And music in general. You know, every now and then someone comes along where they just have a voice, you know, and it's an unmistakable. They have an unmistakable sound and an unmistakable way of playing, and even though they're emulating and you know what came before them, they've figured out how to just do their thing with it, and they've figured out how to absorb all that music and make it come out their own way. So you know, like developing your own voice is especially for a jazz artist is what your goal is anyway.
Yeah, what's the other famous bass player, Jaco?
Jaco Pastorius.
They say that he's one of a kind. You know, so many people want to imitate him, but it's
Yeah, he figured out how to do his own. You know, he became one of those guys. You know, it's Lyle was definitely one of those guys. You know, he had his own sound and his own way of playing.
hey, I would need to check it out now. Yeah, you picked my appetite. I would need to do a little bit of research on live males. I mean, I don't know. I know Lyle from playing with Band Metheny because I like his music a lot. That was one of my debut records. I mean, one of the first records that I bought with Band Metheny, and I know that Lyle did like a 3 solo project or so. He didn't do that much. He
Yeah.
kind of isolated himself from society after way before when the Band Metheny group dissolved. I don't know if it was dissolved because Lyle Mays, but I didn't know that he was that gifted, like you mentioned. I wasn't.
Yeah. Go to that website. It's
Yeah.
it's a really well done website. It was done by I can't trying to remember the guy's name now, but he got in touch with me and I ended up contributing stuff to it. But it's LyleMays.com. I'm sure that's what it is.
Yeah.
But it's like, you know, it's just full of his music and full of his thoughts on music and full of people who had experiences with him talking about him, and it's really well done. Yeah, I would recommend you go to it.
Looking back at your life, is the good and the bad. Is any particular, and you don't need to mention the band or the group or who you were to. Is any particular night that was the weirdest, craziest things that happened to you? And then the same question the other way around. Looking back, you say, man, that was one of my best gigs in my life. Everything clicked, the lighting, the cues, the atmosphere, whatever, the public.
Okay, well, the worst gig I ever did was I lived in L.A. and when you're starting out there, you just sort of when the phone rings, you say yes because you want to work and you want people to know about you.
Sure.
So I show up at this gig and it was with a guy who I guess had been on the Tonight Show and was known as the world's oldest trumpet player.
Yeah.
So this guy he had to be in his 90s. Anyway, so and it was me playing an out-of-tune piano with a bunch of missing keys, and a drummer and an accordion player, and this trumpet player. And he wouldn't call a song, you know, he wouldn't say, let's play this in this key. He would just start playing. And then we had to, you know, and I remember thinking, this is the worst thing I've ever done in my life, and I may have to quit music after this. And then you go from the other extreme as you're playing, you know, I got to record a record in Carnegie Hall with Woody, or I you know, played with Michael at the Hollywood Bowl, or we played at, you know, the in what's the big Albert Hall with Michael and Olivia. You know, so
The Royal, the Royal Albert Hall in,
yeah,
in
I
London?
played there twice. Once with Michael, once with Olivia Newton-John, and
That's a very, very famous place, man.
oh yeah, it's
It's
like
an honor to
yeah, it was
play there, man.
it was
Wow.
amazing. It's not the best sounding place in the world, but man, it just the history of it.
Yeah.
I mean, you go in the backstage and all the lounge areas, and it's like the history of it is just incredible. So yeah, there's, you know, the music business. If you stay in it long enough, you're going to be doing everything from my worst gig to the best, you know. And the same with some recording sessions are kind of like that too. There, you know, it's every now and then you do one where you have to pinch yourself. You can't believe you're part of it and that you're here, you know. So that's been fun.
Yeah. Wow. Playing. I'm quite sure you have more stories that you cannot tell here for the recording.
I probably can't remember most of them.
But you can write the book. Bernie also, I asked Bernie the same question. He said, man, I have so many, we need to write a book, man.
Yeah. Now I have time. Maybe I should, but I don't know who would buy it.
What are your plans? I have only a couple of minutes, so two left. What are your plans for the near future regarding gigs, touring? Well, it's up in the air, right? We don't know.
It's all up in the air. Right now, I'm just focused on, you know, trying to make a living here, doing what I'm doing, and hopefully, you know, things will come back. Yeah, we're all hoping that the whole music industry has just been devastated by this.
Yeah.
We need it to come back, you know, we really do. And so, you know, gosh, man, people just need to wear their masks and get vaccinated so we can get beyond this.
Yeah.
Stop all the silliness, and let's just
Here where I live, I'm in the border with Maryland and Washington D.C.
mm-hmm.
And then every band comes to this area. All of them come here. So
yeah.
I used to take for granted that, you know, given more time and money, I could have seen, I don't know, 100 gigs a year. Of course, my wife will divorce me, obviously, but there's so many. I was saying, I don't know, 30, 35 gigs a year. Everybody comes to town, and I took for granted. Now I haven't seen a gig for a year. That's when I put the radio together, you know, to listen to my own stuff.
We used to play that area all the time, you know, just everywhere around there, you know.
Yeah, I don't know if like 20 minutes from here is a very nice place. Well, that many too very good, but the one that come to mind is the Wolf Trap with Michael.
We always played Wolf Trap, yeah.
2 or 3 nights. It's
beautiful. And there's another one in Virginia. It's a club. It's a concert club. I'm trying to remember the name of it.
In Virginia?
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty famous too. I can't remember the name of it. Birchmere or something like that.
The Birchmere, of course, yeah. But the Birchmere is very, very famous. Everybody who can play.
Yeah.
Play there, but it's a small venue, right? Michael McDonald wouldn't play there because they couldn't make the money, you know.
Yeah, we played there. I mean, a couple of times.
With Michael?
Yeah, it's a club, right?
It's a small place, 500 seats, right? Yeah.
Yeah, we played there a couple of times. I mean, with Michael, we'd, you know, to fill in the calendar, we'd do every now and then we'd do those are my favorite gigs actually because they're small and intimate.
Yeah, that's a beautiful place. That's my favorite place of all of them, in my opinion.
And a lot of theaters. We play a lot of theaters. Redone old theaters. You know that. So that's fun. I mean, I think this year what I missed. One of the things I missed most was like usually Michael would do a Christmas tour, and he'd augment his usual set with a lot of Christmas songs because he's got a couple of Christmas records out, and that was always fun.
Yeah. Michael's wife also, she's very famous, right?
Yeah, I got to play on her record, her latest record.
Amy, I think, yeah.
Amy Holland, yes, she's very good.
And Bernie, and now I remember, Bernie mentioned to me that I should check out his song. He's very good too.
Yeah, Bernie's a good songwriter. Bernie has has co-written with Michael and a bunch of other people, and he's very, very talented. Well, obviously he's a talented guitarist, but he's a very, very talented songwriter. And
That's beautiful, man.
yeah.
All right, and the last question I have for you. So, where our listeners can buy your music? Feel free to give us the name of your website and whatever you are selling, so people will buy your stuff.
It's patcoil.com, PATCOIL.com, and you can get anything. That's where you can buy it, and then CD Baby, iTunes has all that stuff too.
Okay.
And then there's a record label I've been recording for. It's going to be putting out a CD. They're called Burton Avenue Music. That's another one. And as far as the rest of it, I mean, on my website, I used to, I have a calendar up there where I would list all my gigs and all the touring with Michael and Linda Carter and everybody else. And of course, there's nothing there right now because there's no gigs.
Yes, gotcha.
We're hoping for a resurgence.
Well, hopefully soon you will update the website and say I'm playing here, I'm playing here.
Yeah.
People can check out your stuff, man. But thank you very much for your help and your time, man. You're a very good guy, man. And I love your music as a solo artist and with the people you have played, and of course with Michael McDonald. So keep up the good work, and God willing, everybody will keep on using masks and take the vaccine for everybody. And we live in a crazy world, man.
Got to get through it. I just got to
be alive, man.
I got to stay hopeful. So
that's
thank you, Claudio. I very, very much enjoyed it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it, man. We'll stay in touch.
Okay.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much, man. Bye-bye. Excellent. Thank you. Have a good evening.